Next time I get solo killed or whatever, it's like, why'd you pick this? I'm playing my strengths. They're just not that strong.
They're just not that strong. Don't worry, it could have been worse. You don't want to see my weakness.
Trust me, if I was playing Fiora, you would not like what you're getting.
Just be glad I've only died 2 times so far, buddy. Hello and welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia, Season 10, Episode 29. Our teams are going to Mexico. We're not going to Mexico, but the teams are going to Mexico. The good teams, the top 4 teams, the biggest dogs of the LCS are going to home grounds in Mexico City with Lyon. And I'm super hyped. This is what we've all been waiting for. Going to get the TLAW versus Lyon matchup. They're peaking. We're going to get our... Well, it's not exactly the end, but we already know, what teams are in playoffs and stuff, and so we're gonna formulate all of our opinions of our world's representatives and everything. So it's gonna be banger weekend lined up.
I also feel like it's going to dictate a ton for MVP race, for All Pro. When the top teams play each other towards the end of the split, that changes people's opinions massively. I think back to the last split with Jose, who I thought was kind of like leading the MVP race, and then final week they lost to Lyon and C9, and they're
how can I vote for this guy over Inspired if Inspired just beat him?
There you go. There goes the MVP, right? And then Vulcan won. So I feel like Jose is again in the MVP race. A lot of the players that are going to be there playing, so it's going to be super exciting. Speaking of other big esports news, obviously Caps Hall of Legends skin previews, those came out, and there's some videos that they did with Caps, him talking about like why he chose Tristana and showing some of his plays and like some of the reasons that he kind of went with what he went with. So that's pretty cool. You should definitely check that out on. I think it's just on the League of Legends YouTube. Or is it on Riot Games YouTube? It's on one of the YouTubes.
One of those. Check maybe?
Check the YouTube and look for that, and you can check out the new Caps skins that are going to be coming out pretty soon. But we've got a patch coming out here, and I know public enemy number 1 for you guys is always Graves. And,
they
got him. Finally,
they got him.
Arrested the outlaw.
Got your man.
Yeah, he's getting some nerfs. I think I'll still ban him, honestly, personally. Because you know what I've been playing lately? I don't know if you're onto this one yet, Kobe, but Zach.
I have. I was talking about it last time.
Okay. Yeah, he's real good right now. You just copy all my champs, I think.
I did.
You just look at my profile to decide what to play.
It is originally your champion from the beginning of LCS.
Yeah.
That is the champion that you got what was the meme number? Either 13 or 14 KDA.
12.7.
It was 12.7.
There we go. 12.7, close to 13.
There's a few memes. There's another one. There's an Elise one as well.
There are a few memes.
Tracking some cooldown.
I don't remember anything like that.
I feel like, I can't remember if it was last episode or the week before that, but I really feel like Zach has been super underrated. And so I have been trying to pick this up and get it to a Meteos level. I'm not at a Meteos level of playing Zach quite yet, but I do feel like he is really powerful, and it's one of the tanks that really benefited from the pet changes because he clears better now, and I felt like his clear was an area that he can't get punished and get invaded. I assume that's what you're talking about where you're still banning Graves.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's too annoying, dude. He's just too annoying because he'll cheese you early, and I feel like the other one for me is Talon. If someone bans Graves, I'll ban Talon. Not because it's hard to play against him in the traditional sense, but he just clears so fast, and if he gets ahead at all,
steals yours.
He's just doing laps around you in the jungle. It's like you have to decide: okay, do I like clear 2 camps so I match his full clear, or do I also full clear and he's killed all of my laners in that time? So, yeah. It's tough out here, but, it is what it is. Zach's gank's really good right now.
Yeah. I just think the Graves nerfs are pretty good. I like those nerfs. Interesting. Nocturne is getting some more nerfs as well to tap him down. He wasn't like taking over pro play, but he is more in pro play than Graves would. So that one actually will affect pro play. And Nocturne he is so unique for pro play. It's like, we're always, oh my God, it's the Nocturne plus Oriar combos, or you can do other like crazy hard engages with the Nocturne. Nico's a super commonly mentioned one, but like all kinds of champions that benefit from, flanking and engaging and stuff. I think Nocturne is really cool how the Vision games and stuff are played. But nice little tap down on him for pro play as well.
The big one for me was Vayne. Vayne got really hit pretty hard, I think. And Vayne right now in pro play is obviously getting a decent amount of play, but these days it's much more just that it always gets banned, right? Like this champion, if you're going into phase 2, it almost always seems to be that you drop your top lane pick to phase 2, then you ban Vayne, then you can pick your Gnar, your Renekton, your Cassante. Like there's a whole bunch of matchups that are actually really, really hard that are common pro play matchups. So Vayne is getting pretty consistently banned, and it's getting nerfed in a lot of different ways. The tumble mana increase is actually really significant. 16 more mana from 30 to 46 at rank 1 is really big. And you'd say, oh, well, just max your Q. Well, there's Silverbolt's damage nerfs as well that are pretty significant until you do get that maxed out. So Silverbolt's is going down to 4% max target HP at rank 1 from 6%, and the minimum damage is going down from 50 to 40. So those two changes seem pretty big to me, plus less attack speed growth overall, less HP regen growth, less health growth. So there's a lot of different ways that they're nerfing Vayne here. And you never know. Maybe some really good Vayne matchups are still going to be fine, but I feel like this is probably going to kill top Vayne in pro.
To the joy of a lot of top lane players to hear, because it wasn't just pro play, solo queue as well. She was terrorizing.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about it before we were on the air. It's just I ban Vayne when I'm going top, and there's a lot of things I don't want to play against top. I'm opting into. I'd rather play against Darius, Tryndamere, Teemo, whatever.
I feel like Anivia is a terrorist in the top lane.
Oh, absolutely, but I still think Vayne's the one that I'm gonna have no fun laning against, and she'll probably carry the game as well.
Yeah.
So, I am a fan of her getting nerfed for sure, because that laning experience is just so rough. And like you said in pro play, it's not like we see Vayne taking over all the time, but it's just one of those things where it's like the threat of Vayne existing makes it has this invisible pressure on the draft so heavily, because you do have to ban it if you want to pick certain things, because we've seen before what happens when Vayne gets a good situation and you can play around her, and she can just quickly get out of hand. She runs bone plating, exhaust, rushes tank items, and then still stat checks you and looks flashy while doing it. So people are pogging at her, and I'm like, no, stop pogging. He's a ranged tank who's just right-clicking me. There's nothing impressive. But, people still pog. So I'm not going to miss Vayne, personally. I'm not.
Yeah, same. So they are another of the pro-facing ones, as well as solo queue. I'd say pretty heavily in solo queue right now, but a lot of pros have been practicing it. You could spy a lot on their accounts. Was the Nasus changes. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the LCK top lane players have been playing a lot of Nasus in solo queue. Doran was even interviewed about it a little bit. And he was talking about how he still thought that the Nasus lane phase was too easily punishable for pro, but I'm happy that they still nerfed his lane phase even more now, this patch notes, because Nasus was getting really annoying for solo queue, and people had started playing him in mid lane because it's easier lane to deal with, and you can get through mid lane easier because it's so short and it's really easy to avoid ganks and stuff. And so I'm happy that they're nerfing his sustain. The lifesteal, it doesn't look like that big of a nerf, but nerfing the sustain here for Nasus already has had a very big effect on the win rate of the champion for solo queue. And so I'm pretty happy with that, so that it doesn't get to be, some big problem. Because Nasus, I think you last time were talking about it, Will, how you're like, it's a frustrating gameplay because it doesn't really do anything flashy either. And then you just get withered, so you don't get to do much either at all. And you're just sad.
And then he just kills you.
And then he just bonks you on the head for 10 billion damage.
I still think he's going to be really strong mid lane, though. I feel like people have been sleeping on the mid lane, because I feel like not only are you laning against matchups that it's way harder to punish you in, you're laning in a way shorter lane that it's just easier to actually always be getting XP early and just get slammed less. And I think tier 3 boots are really good for him. There's a number of different tier 3 boots that I think are really, really strong. I always think the Lucidity boots tier 3, because it's a bunch of move speed on them on the proc, is really strong on Nasus if you can get away with them. Obviously defensive boots can be quite good to get you through the early game, but man, being able to to get, it's 10% move speed, bonus move speed for 4 seconds when you damage someone. Like that is a lot for Nasus, who is this binary champion that if he can catch you, he can beat you.
Yeah. Have you played against I don't know how popular it is. I was going to look it up, but the people who are doing like the crit Nasus where you go Essence Reaver into
Sky.
That's sometimes, but it's usually Fiend Hunter bolts. Oh. So you just ulti and then you just all your Qs are critting. It's really goofy, but it's super strong. Like he actually just kind of runs up and kills you.
I'd seen people do like the Sundered Sky stuff for like the guaranteed first Q crit or whatever. Like,
thing. I don't. Okay, it doesn't look like it's that popular. I think it's a bit of a troll build, but it's pretty hilarious.
So I was gonna say I played against one of those and I just dunked him early so hard that I was like, this is troll. So my only experience with it was completely dumping on him and thinking that it was troll. But I guess if you don't punish him, then getting Q crit or whatever would be very painful.
It's definitely goofy. I don't think it's the ideal way to play him because I think more often than not you'll probably get punished, but it
sounds fun.
Hilarious amount of damage. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I do think the biggest like possible pro affecting like ripple effect note in this patch would and could be the Sundered Sky legit nerfs this time, because last time it was the change was like they're kind of nerfing it, but then you have more flat HP anyway, and so it didn't really feel the Sundered Sky changes last time that much.
Yeah, the pros
but this is just straight up removing stats. Mm-hmm. So this is legit nerf to Sundered Sky, and I've had multiple, pro players that I've played with just in like FlexQ and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, wait, which patch is this? Is this? Oh, it's not nerfed yet. Okay, I'll still buy it." And they're already like planning and prepping, like, "All right, I'm not buying that thing."
This item is sad. This item is really sad now.
50 less HP and less AD on it as well is just I think.
Plus the nerfs from last patch.
Yeah, I think I would just jump ship as well. And, there's a lot of other bruiser items that are quite good, and you'll just replace whatever the Sundered Sky piece was in your build, whatever your champion is. If it like stacks Black Cleaver quick or something, maybe you replace it with that, or you'll replace it with something fairly similar.
That was my big question. Is I'm curious on your guys' take on this, because I've talked to a few people that have kind of different opinions on, with this change, does it push it towards more like tank or AP junglers or whatever, things like that for pro, or B, just shift the build orders and it's the same meta?
I would guess that it's going to just change the build orders. I think there's a decent chance people will still just play the same champions and buy Sundered Sky, because even though it's going to feel pretty bad, it might still be the best option, because a lot of the time what you want to do as a jungler in pro play is like, generally, not always, they're picked early in the draft because the counters don't matter as much.
Yeah.
It's better to get a laner and counter pick. And then you want to be somebody who's tanky enough that you can walk through areas where the opponents could be without just getting one shot. Because a lot of times you'll see people who will say, hey, why don't pro junglers just build Profane Hydra into Axiom Arc? I do that in solo queue all the time and I drop 20 kills. It's like, okay, well, yeah, when you have 20 kills, it's pretty good. But in pro play, when they have the whole river warded up and they say, hey, this guy's playing Jarvan with 0 HP, we can just one-shot him on cooldown, they're going to do that. And then all of a sudden, you have to just play so scared, there's nowhere you can walk. But if you're playing, I don't know, Wukong, Lee Sin, Jarvan, whatever, and you can afford to walk into their support jungler camping together and not die to it, that opens up so many more possibilities for what you can do. So I still expect people are going to play these bruisers. I think they could switch up their build because there are other options that are not way worse. There's Eclipse, which is still kind of squishy. There's Cleaver. There's the Hydras.
Jarvans and solo queue go Eclipse first. And I was going to say, like, Lee Sin and Pro, a lot of Lee Sins started doing Eclipse first. Obviously, they do Sundered Sky as well, but it's kind of interesting.
Yep, there's, like, Trinity Force for Wukong and Siobhan and stuff. So I don't expect the meta to shift too heavily. It might make playing the tank junglers feel a little bit less bad, because I know that a lot of the time the weakness of them would be the fact that, say you're playing Sejuani and then the enemy jungler is a Sundered Sky Merktread champion, you're just never killing them. You cannot ever kill them. They will heal through your damage and just be more useful than you. So I haven't played around with it a whole lot personally, but the nerfs do hurt the item quite a bit, so we'll see if it makes any movement on the meta.
Yeah, I think that the Sejuani, Zac, and Skarner are all prime tanks to kind of fill in for pro play. I mean, Zach, of course, is super rare in pro play, and even when he's good, still, I feel like has a hard time getting into pro play. Junglers are pretty slow to pick him up, but he definitely is performing very well in solo queue right now.
And top and mid, I think he's pretty good too. So that's kind of what was making me think like he should get in there, because flex picks are just so OP in pro play for a draft. So if you can actually find matchups where it works well in top and in mid and so on, then having the option to be able to actually move it around is pretty huge. Obviously, like champions like Poppy are really, really problematic for him, but like Poppy gets banned a lot of the time anyway, right?
Yeah, and even if Zach doesn't get in there, the Sejuani and the Skarner, like I said, are for sure easily slots into pro.
Oh, I think Skarner is going to be... I think he's already really good, and I think he's... If I was playing pro, I would want to play Skarner most of the time when he's available, because I think that a lot of times people just don't know how much damage Skarner really does. Like, usually his meta build is running like the haste rune and the scaling health stuff, but if you just run like double adaptive, you just one-shot people at level 3 or level 4 or whatever. So, yeah, I think he's getting a little bit slept on, and he'll do even better with his like competition getting nerfed.
I have a new slept on jungle champ as well. Okay, I don't know if have you played against one of these guys, because there's 2 of them in North America in Challenger. Cho'Gath jungles, and Cho'Gath got a very, very, very small buff on this patch. But I've decided now is my time. I'm going to do the Cho'Gath jungle.
Oh, I played him last season at some point, and I like him, but I could not win on him. I don't know. I think it's my teams every time, because it's Cho'Gath. How bad could I really be playing him? But I feel like my win rate sucked on him, but I have seen that his win rate's not bad overall.
Yeah, and there's a couple of them that do it in Challenger in NA. So yeah, that's the new sleeper pick, I feel like. Okay. Especially with these buffs on this patch.
I think one of them is, I think it's Kenvi. They play on an account named Umbreon, and that dude's like crazy.
Yeah, Kenvi's quite good.
That's interesting. Yeah, Cho'Gath, I think, can be really, really strong, but I never have fun playing that champion. He just feels so slow, and so like the skill shots are so slow. The Q knock-up is so slow.
It's an old champ. People always meme about release dates, but you could feel the release date.
You could feel the release date. Yeah. It's an anchor. It's holding you down, man. But at the same time, that champion can be really strong. I mean, obviously objective secures are incredible, but also against a lot of these like outplay, like diver style champions like Yones and Yasuo's and all these types of things that are even like Ambessa, they go in, they get silenced, they get feasted, and okay, what do you do now? You've lost a huge chunk of your health. You can't cast any abilities. Like silence is crazy against some champions.
It's one of those old dark technologies that can counter the new release date champions.
Yeah, because it disables their kit.
Yeah, they're trying to do some crazy stuff, and you're like, stop! Shout at them.
Another champion buff, Qiyana, actually. That was one that there is some compensation nerfs for her jungle clear, but she's getting 10 flat damage on her Q, which, I mean, I don't know if we have any Qiyana mid players since Demonte switched over to coaching, but that champion does a lot of damage in lane. Because the fact that it's 10 damage and your Q gets amped, like when you have the elements, like I think the rock one is like, extra 50% damage. So if they're below half, this will be 30 more damage.
And you can get one, and then you can throw it, and then pull another one real quick and throw another one.
Yep.
And
you can do QEQ.
Yeah, so you can get really good usefulness out of it as far as a burst combo is. And the burst is definitely something that's getting buffed on this patch, which always does make me a little bit nervous, because Qiyana, the buffs you're mentioning, those could make you a little bit nervous. LeBlanc also is getting some AP ratio buffs as well, so her burst later in the game could be more scary. And a lot of the assassins, they did make that philosophical choice to make like delayed patterns, so the damage isn't like, oh, you actually got one shot by an assassin, because they identified that as the most painful experience. But LeBlanc and Kiana they get pretty close, and Kiana definitely is like nail on the head as far as one-shotting people.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of delay in some of that pattern, so it could definitely, you get into that one-shot territory and people are getting deleted.
I mean, I just hate when Kiana is good, because to me, like, getting one shot is getting one shot. Like that is frustrating regardless. Like, agnostic of champion, but my least favorite champions are champions where it feels like you can't hit them back. And Kiana, just grass Q, it literally feels like it never ends. You just keep grass queuing over and over and over and over and over and over. And it's like,
well, with enough haste, it actually could never end.
Yeah.
The Kiana is one reason I can kind of stomach playing against Kiana is because she's actually really hard to play.
Yeah.
So I can respect when a Kiana owns me. Like, to an extent, right? Like, I'll still complain, but
you're not respecting the grass cues.
Not as much as a Nasus killing me. If a Nasus kills me, then I'm just mad. But if a Kiana kills me, I'm like, okay, like, they could have messed something up there. But the Kiana thing is, I think that takes some getting used to. Is like with the grass Q, it's like you throw your Q and then you want to instantly pick up another grass, but you don't want to jump outside of the stealth zone or it'll cancel it.
Yeah.
Yes, but you can just hold that, and so then the cooldown's ticking, and so then you Q again. So you don't actually need to have enough haste for the W cooldown to be like less than the stealth. If that makes sense. Yeah, you can still get a really long stealth if you just keep doing that trick, and it's so annoying to play against, though, for sure.
That is unbelievably frustrating. I feel like that, and like it's the same reason I don't like playing against a Kali. Like Shroud is just annoying, right? Like it's just annoying. Not necessarily saying it's OP, it's just not fun to play against. Same way I feel about Smokescreen. There's a few abilities that I'm just like, Smokescreen is the worst because you look like a complete dummy to your teammates as well. Like, it's like, why are you clicking forward there? Well, I didn't see their whole team was running in. Or like, why are you clicking back? Well, I thought their whole team was going to be there. You just look so stupid to everyone else, and you have no clue what's happening. It's got to be one of the most frustrating abilities.
Oh, for sure. And the Graves player, like, when you're playing Graves, you can't really tell that how much damage, like mental anguish you're inflicting on them when you throw your smoke screen at them. Because it's like, to you just hit them with a slow. But to them, it's just like their world is ending.
Yeah.
It's like they're Nocturne ulted. They can't move. Graves is one-shotting them. It's a nice experience.
I always treat it like, you cast the smoke screen on someone, and I'm like, I just made that guy way worse. He dropped like 4 divisions. And I like this guy, it's like you make them a worse player because they're like, whoa, what's going on? And they're like, stop hitting yourself. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's definitely rough out there. But yeah, it should be an interesting patch. And I think you said earlier, Kobe, this is the one that we're going to be sticking on through playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So this one is going to be
the teams agreed.
Oh, there you go.
I think that was.
Oh, really?
I think that was something that happened. They because we had I forget who told us, but someone was talking about how they had the choice, and they were talking about keeping it consistent for the meaningful games.
Yeah. So that is going to be the patch that we are locked on them for quite a while. So it will be interesting to see how it actually turns out, and if it does shift the meta whatsoever.
You know what? That just made me think, would this further incentivize some players to put time in on hard champions? We had a little bit of a discussion like this last episode, or maybe even a previous one when we were talking about Gangplank, but some of these champions that are getting buffed and are like pretty hard champions, if you're going to be on the patch for a very long time and a meaningful time that's leading up to playoffs and worlds and all this, all these very meaningful ones, maybe you're like, you know what, it is worth practicing these Kiana combos, something like that.
It is worth practicing Wither and R.
You know what, I will
WR and then D for Ghost. A triple combo right there.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would guess no, because just the time of the year that it is, it's like, this is the most important time of the year for immediate results. You know how before I was saying with Shopify as an example, when teams start doing the Band-Aid solutions really early, I think it's kind of bad. But this is the point in the year where you just throw on all the Band-Aids you can because you don't have that much time and you really need to win now. So you just take whatever your best thing is and you try to make it as good as it can be. I don't think it's really the time of the year where you want to rediscover yourself, be like, guys, I'm only playing Kiana mid now.
But what if you're already a complete lock for playoffs and you're a top team?
Then you could.
Then you can experiment, right? Like Lyon and TL aren't necessarily worried about the next game or two. That's not going to affect if they make playoffs or not, right? So Obviously, you want to win and you want to guarantee yourself a bye, which is the top 2 seeds. So that's really what they're going to be playing for. But like once stuff like that is locked, or if you're locked out of it and you're like, hey, I'm going to playoffs anyway, then I feel like sometimes that can be worthwhile, right? Because those are the things that can make a difference, like in semifinals or in finals or whatever. If you have that extra champion, especially in a competitive Fearless, that's what's really, really fun about the best of fives.
Yeah, that is a good point. I can see people doing that for sure.
Yeah.
I guess for me, it was always the short-term practice that would hurt, because a lot of times when you try something that's really new, it's like a huge departure from the standard way to play, is that sometimes you'll just forget some of the fundamental macro things that are making your team good because people are more focused on their lane. Maybe their matchups aren't going as well. They'll forget to communicate certain things. They'll forget to like put as much emphasis on vision and movement and just be like so focused on the micro of their champion. So I think there are definitely some short-term risks doing that stuff. But at the same time, like you said, if you can just pull out the next greatest thing and you get good at it before other people, that's a huge advantage.
Yep, especially in Fearless can be really huge. We are going to take a quick break, and then we are going to come back. We're going to talk about week 5 that just happened and the Mexico road trip for Lyon Homegrounds that's coming up right after this.
Dude, this lobby is kind of comfy. It feels different.
If this is different, I like different. I'm staying right here.
Are you guys serious? We're about to get into game.
Emily, let us enjoy it!
You guys need to lock in. Maybe this'll help.
Oh no, not already.
Welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia. It is time to talk LCS, and we're getting down towards the end of the regular season, which means playoffs is coming, and that means finals is coming, and the LCS championship is going to be in Georgia at the Gas South Arena. There are still tickets available. I know I saw it posted that one-day tickets are on sale now too, so make sure you get your tickets. It is Saturday, October 3rd, Sunday, October 4th. The link is in the description, so get your tickets if you have not already. We just had week 5, which for all the teams that played in week 5, they only have one game left because they had this doubleheader week. And we're going into week 6 where our top 4 teams are all going to be in Mexico. They're going to have a doubleheader week. But let's start with this week 5. That was a lot of fun on the broadcast. There was kind of like the pro player takeover. We had pros casting. We had Sven on the AD both days. We had a full pro desk on Sunday, which we've never done before. And then we had the cast as well with the double pro tri-cast and stuff. So we did all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think my favorite parts were the analyst desk the second day when we did have all pros on the analyst desk, and especially like the opening show where they had a lot of these segments prepared by like Emily and Raz and Jat and like some different presentations and stuff, and then they're delivering them, and we have the prompters getting shown, and the prompter operator becomes this character in the show, and like Inspired is deadpan just like reading the presentation, and then Azazel's like, where's this prompter going? Whatever, I'm gonna ignore that. And it was definitely a lot of fun. All of the pros that we had too, were from these top teams that they're playing all this upcoming week in Mexico. And so they had the extra time. So they were both like top players as well as a lot of the players that we already had previously identified as being interested in broadcast. And so it was really cool. Zazel's has been hilarious on every piece of content that we've gotten him on. So the combination that we had with Dokla and Sven and Zazel and Inspired and all of them was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's super good vibes. I feel like you always get I learn new stuff when I hear pros talk about the game because as much as you can learn as an analyst watching games, watching LCK, whatever, if you're not actually playing in it, there's a lot of stuff you don't see. The stuff that didn't work out in scrims, or the stuff that you never see happen because people know what will happen, if you attempt it, kind of deal. So I think it's really cool to get the pro player perspective on all that stuff and just get more insight into the game, because there's really no way you can know that stuff otherwise without it.
No, not to the same level. Like the most updated thing from the most recent scrims, like all this sort of stuff. It's fun. I also think it's just fun because pros can get away with some stuff that we cannot, like as someone who works on the broadcast every week, it's like, you have to be a little neutral at least and, maintain relationships with all the different teams and different coaches and stuff like that. And so like, it was cracking me up. Inspired just absolutely grilling ThinkCard on his draft and stuff. He's like, why did you do this for? Like, why wouldn't you just do this? And like, you really think that's good? That's worth it and stuff? And it just like, to me, that was like really funny, just kind of having pros that are super opinionated and kind of just like unchanged to do whatever they want was a lot of fun.
When Inspired voted Surdy as player of the series because he fed so hard for the other team. Yeah. That's one of those funny things.
That's a real one.
Yeah.
That's a real one right there.
That's one of those things that sometimes we joke about, but we're not allowed to do.
You're not going to do that.
So no, it was definitely it was fun. I mean, Inspired did you see the pre-show with like the presentation and stuff?
I saw some of it, but I didn't actually co-stream this past weekend because I had like people in town. But I did watch a lot of the highlights and make sure I saw a lot of stuff, but not everything.
Okay, yeah. So it was really funny. We talked about this in the store meeting stuff before, and we were coming up with like ideas and pitches or whatever. And I was like, should make Inspired present how Lyon was better with our Mayo. And then I think Emily and Kangas like made the presentation, all these like ridiculous funny stats, and like, oh, he's got 0 wins with this, and a higher winning percentage with our Mayo. And like Inspired just goes, he's like, yep, those are the stats. Next slide. Just like for every single one, he's like, yeah, looks like the stats are right. Next slide. It's just like every single one. So it was really funny. It was like completely deadpan, unfazed by it all. And yeah, the prompter stuff was hilarious. Did you see the prompter clips?
Yeah, I saw the prompter crashing out. That was good.
Yeah, it was really funny. I was in there with them, like watching a lot of the games and stuff. And they're like, "How are you supposed to read the prompter and look at the screen? This is impossible." And I'm like, so it was definitely fun. I was like, "All right, my job may be safe for a little bit."
I do always love when pro players will come on and like after casting like the one guest game or whatever, they'd be like, "Wow, I'm so tired. Like I didn't.
How do you do that?
I was so tired. Like talking constantly."
It's pretty hard. I mean, obviously you guys have casted a long time, but I've been on the other side of it. I like went from pro player and I've done a couple guest casts, but yeah, it's hard. It doesn't feel like it'll be that hard when you're watching it. You're like, yeah, you're just talking about the game. But then when you're actually up there and you're watching the game in real time, you're supposed to just talk, like say what, like the player saying what's happening, especially during team fights. And then you're supposed to break it down, analyze everything really quickly. It's just like, wow, I don't know, say sometimes.
Yeah.
It's fun, though. It was a lot of fun having Jose and APA as well came in the cast. Jose said he had never cast anything before in his life. And like, so it's always cool when the players are genuinely like really excited about it. And they, him and APA both seem like super down for it. And they were like into it. It's, I don't know, it's cool getting to see that side of the players and like their very specific views and stuff on like what is important in the game is just like different, right? So it's cool.
Yeah. That I thought was one of the most interesting things that I saw, especially when I forget which game it was, but there was basically just a discussion on which team's draft would you rather play.
Yeah.
They both chose opposite teams for it because pro play is one of those things that's very subjective. There's oftentimes not just this comp is definitively better than this other one. I mean, it can happen if somebody turbo griefs the draft or something, but a lot of the time there are advantages and disadvantages to each side. And just being able to hear pro players from different teams have an actual discussion on it is so rare because most of the time you're not discussing in earnest with your competition on like your thoughts in the game. Sometimes people will do it if you are close with someone on another team, former teammates or whatnot, and you're just like, hey, like, what do you think about this? But usually there's not a lot of incentive to try to help your opponents get better.
For people who missed that, the specific thing that you were talking about, basically it was like one comp had like more early agency, but like the pressure to also snowball, and the other comp was more of kind of like a outscale comp, but had like a lot less agency in the early game. And Jose is like so far on the side of like, I want to play the Jarvan, I want to do the thing. The other guy's playing Shyvana, right? Like, he doesn't have the agency. So Jose is like, well, I'm going to do the 3-camp gank and I'm going to win the game. And APA is like, almost on the other side of just like, yeah, but if you don't, we just win for free. And, like, it's interesting hearing the perspectives of that. And I always find it fun.
It was Dig versus Fly. That's what it was. And then, Dig was on the Jarvan, Fly was on the Shyvana.
Yep.
And that is one of those things that's really tough for a team like Dig because whenever the bottom teams play, they'll play the early game comp because they've lost so many games where they try scaling and they're just getting run over. They're like, okay, we just need to draft all prio. We got to have something going early. But then you're not really winning your lanes as hard as you should. and you don't really get an advantage, and then you just get outscaled and run over. So then you go, okay, we're not going to get outscaled next game. And then you just lose lane hard as hell. Your jungle's getting invaded everywhere. You can't play. You can't breathe. And then you're just like, we got to draft more prio. And you just keep going back and forth. And it's like, guys, there might be something else we need to do here. Like, I don't think we just should go back and forth between early and late game comps based on what we lost with most recently.
I mean, doing coach interviews and stuff is always really funny. Like, we used to do something like the coach interviews where you'd like talk to both coaches back to back, or sometimes you just see them in the hallways walking by, and you're like, "Oh, how'd draft go?" And the one coach is always like, "Yeah, it's so good," like slammed them, And you go talk to the next coach, he's like, "Yeah, what was that idiot doing?" Like, I got everything, It's like people have such different opinions on League, which is really really fun, and it can be some of the very very best players see it completely differently.
Yeah. I always like the disagreements because people are like, oh, this guy said that is winning, so that's correct. When it's a lot about the reasoning. But let's get into the actual games that we did have this last weekend. Since they were kind of repeated, each team did play twice. We can kind of talk about it from both of one team's matches from the weekend, I think, to consolidate a little bit. Sentinels, they started out versus Fly. They went 4-0 on the weekend, and they also played DSG. But Sentinels, I thought, were the ones that came out looking the best.
Yeah.
Hambach and Rahel both. I was like, man, both these guys are playing really, really well. They're all doing what is necessary. I ended up voting for Hambach for my player of, I think, both series, and possibly
who won player of the week. I can't even remember.
I don't know. I don't actually remember who won either, but it might have been Hambach.
I'll see if I can find it.
He definitely had a significant amount of votes. Hambach was very active. There were quite a few games where he was creating a lot. I remember the second day for sure, because Inspired was talking about it on the desk. So that was the series versus DSG for sure. He created so much action. Here, I'm going to look up the game as well, because whether it was on Lee Sin or on Jarvan, but he constantly was doing these invades, getting ahead, fighting on enemy camps. And then Rahel, I felt like the whole weekend too, was very consistent in his carry. The double Ezreal games, the Yunara game as well. And so Sentinels, I thought, came out looking pretty good from this weekend overall.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they clearly looked the best of this week, and I didn't think it was particularly close. The kind of troubles continue for FlyQuest, though. They obviously are a team that has lost like all the big dogs, all the top teams, right? And then it's like Sentinels is kind of like more like in the middle. So you're like, all right, well, where do you actually sit? And it's interesting because what FlyQuest has shown on stage has been very unimpressive, but a lot of the pro players that I talk to are still like they're the fourth best team. And so I think it's kind of interesting, right? Where people see it. People seem to have pretty varying opinions on them as far as like how good they're going to actually do. Quad had an interview. I'm gonna have to look it up and see who actually this interview was with, but he was kind of talking about some of the mental struggles of like they're getting frustrated not with each other as people, but getting frustrated in game. And because they're like all getting frustrated, they're not necessarily like, I guess, being as calm in their decision making, and they're not as like getting as unified in their direction. And so it's like sounds like they're struggling a bit with things in game, whether it is just frustration or like getting too emotional or disagreeing on how things should go. But I do think you can kind of see that where it felt like, even though there were issues with this team in Split 1 and Split 2, it felt like they were way more unified. Now I think they're having individual struggles more than they were before, which I think is somewhat a meta thing too. Like I feel like Griffin off of his kind of niche picks is performing worse. And I think that Cryogen to me has looked worse off of Enchanters as the meta moved away from Enchanters. They've been way less lane dominant bot lane. And then Gatghost I think has just had like a shockingly bad split in general. But yeah, they're just like, beside that, they also seem to be really struggling to work together as a team. And like, even in the games where it's like, early game was a mess, but their like team fighting felt very unified, I felt like in the earlier splits. And so it's down to like the final game for them, and they are going to be in playoffs, but I'm pretty worried for like if they really realistically have a chance to even go to Worlds.
It's looking tough for them. It feels to me kind of like some of their problems from when they first started are resurfacing, where individually I think they're pretty strong players, strong laners, but the way that they play together as a team, especially just the laners connecting with Griffin, there seems to be something going wrong there. I don't necessarily think it's on one side or the other, but they're just not on the same page whatsoever. And so you'll end up seeing some really weird looking plays. Like I remember Pantheon ult where Griffin like ulted in and then just immediately flashed out. Obviously not something you're doing on purpose. That would just be such a sketchy play to look for. But even just what I think was it game one where it was kind of an even looking game state, and then Masu just got caught recalling on a ward and died.
Oh yeah,
the whole game just started falling apart
by Raptors.
Yeah, seeing that kind of thing. I've seen a lot of that this year in general. I think in LCS, not to say just from this team, but people just doing lazy recalls and dying for it. I feel like that is such a tragic way to lose a game, or even just give the other team an advantage at all. Because I don't know, it's not that hard to recall. You got home guards, like you'll be back soon enough. Just don't do it right on vision or in a sketchy spot. Yeah, but it happened, and I mean that wasn't the only thing that happened, obviously, in the game, but. It's just, I don't know. The way they've been playing, very disconnected, and just some unusual mistakes are happening. And I think what you said about Quad saying that they're getting frustrated does line up with kind of what we're seeing in game, because they don't seem to have this like super grounded in-game leader or whatnot who can stay calm and keep everyone else calm. They're just looking frantic.
Yeah, it is definitely worrisome to hear about the internal conflicts the most to me, because they were previously like that was one of the biggest things is they were all living together and had these vibes of, these like college friends that were just made a team together, and they're all, playing late into the night, and they have all these stories about, and Gekos is up there, yelling and screaming from his solo queue down at Griffin, who's also queuing up and playing in like the same solo queue on the opposite side or whatever. And Masu's like, yeah, all these little kids, like I can't sleep because they're, they're all having fun and going so crazy. So it definitely, that is one of the hardest things to hear is if there are kind of cracks on the inside, that I hope that they have good like team management and coaching staff are kind of building out a good pathway to help them improve on some of these things, like the shot calling, like the focusing their team fights, because that's when you need the most structure to your practice, is when you are being tested by going through losses like that. That's when it really puts the coaching staff to the test to be like, okay, we're going to focus on this thing, and what's going to be the steps to get on the pathway back. I had a pretty interesting conversation with a bunch of the pros, Azael, Inspired, and Masu when we did the pros podcast afterwards, talking about practice. And especially because, Team Liquid have had this big transformation with them referencing a lot of the change in their practice and being like goal oriented and really focusing on individual things that they're looking for out of practice instead of just trying to win scrims. And so I kind of hope for a little bit of that for FlyQuest to give them some direction in their building process here, because now is the crunch time. Both Griffin and their coach, Thinkguard, had talked about, the beginning of the year, we're not going to have a lot of pressure on us because we're all young, and the roster is not going to have a lot of expectations. But by the end of the year, we're going to make Worlds. And that those expectations have built up on FlyQuest and this team, because they did get a decent amount of success, in spring and stuff. The expectations also rose and the pressure also rose. Yeah.
So the interview was with was an NA Man interview by Arsh. They did, so you can find it on LCS profiles. Definitely check it out. But there's a lot of quotes that are like for FlyQuest fans pretty concerning, right? They did say, like I said earlier, that they don't have out of game problems, like they're getting along there, but it's in game. He was talking about like saying that they have a lot of stress with each other, not in person, but when we play the game. We had a lot of tough things in scrims. That's not why we're not relaxed. We're not really listening to each other in games, and that's why when we play, we overplay a lot. And he's saying how, like, as an older player, he was asked, like, are you the one who's keeping everyone in check or being less stressed? And he says, I'm trying to do that, but I'm also not relaxed. I feel like if I relax, maybe I can speak like that. We can relax, we can chill, we can calm down, but I'm also not calmed down. And I think that's the problem. I think I need to get rid of my stress, and then I feel like if I'm relaxed, we could be a good team like we were in Split 2. And then he's asked, like, who's the most relaxed? And he's like, nobody's relaxed. He's like, they're all, like, everyone's stressed. And he's talking about how, he's supposed to be the shot caller, but he feels like sometimes people aren't listening to him when he makes his shot calls, and he's like, if it happens a couple times, it's okay, but if I'm just making calls and no one's listening, then like what's the point of kind of making the calls? So then he stops making the calls and then they lose, you know? And so it definitely feels like they have a lot to work on, and it's hard if you do not have like unified direction and opinion and like almost like a clear hierarchy. And it kind of sounds from that interview like they're lacking it. Like if he's supposed to be the shot caller, then I feel like the coaches need to be kind of getting in there and being like, all right, when he says it, you do it, right? Like you need to have a unified direction. And then if people disagree with that, the like the calls or the opinions, then that's what review is for. That's what like after the game is for. But you need to be, especially on stage, like listening to the call, doing the same thing. Otherwise, you just have no chance at this level in league, right? Like if you're trying to do 5 different things, you have literally no chance against top teams.
Oh, absolutely. I think the pressure could also be getting to them because I know firsthand that throughout the year, especially in the earlier splits, it's easy to, when problems arise, you're not as worried about it because you're thinking, okay, we'll work past it, we'll get better, our whole goal is getting to Worlds, and it feels like it's just something that will get fixed down the line. But all of a sudden now it's really crunch hour. You don't have that much more time. And like I was saying, where you need to start looking at the Band-Aid fixes, like the really short-term things, that's kind of what happens. And so then when the same problems arise that have been happening all year, you start really getting more stressed about it because it's like, well, if we lose this weekend, we don't make Worlds. And that was the whole point of all of this. So I could absolutely see that pressure affecting them and just leading to some of this, like Quad said, just everyone sort of not being calm and frantic and whatnot.
Yep, it's definitely tough, but they did secure playoffs, as I said. They beat Dig. Dig had a pretty rough week, a 0-4 week, so they have one more game left to play, but they are eliminated from playoffs, as is DSG. And Dig went into this, and I had felt some optimism coming for them, coming into this weekend for them. And then I remember even, seeing some of the Dig players around, and I feel like they felt pretty optimistic. Their coaches and stuff seemed to feel pretty optimistic because especially when Sentinels beat Fly, there's this feeling of like, oh, if Dig just has to beat DSG, and then if we beat DSG, we beat Fly, we own the head-to-head, we're in playoffs, right? And it's like, it doesn't feel that far away all of a sudden. It's just like, just have to do well this weekend. It's just DSG and Fly struggling. But then they got 2-0-2-0'd. So it is tough, and I think you could see how much that was affecting them. Palafox did an interview, I think it was with Cloud Sidke, and at the end where he's very emotional, and you can see how hard it is for a lot of these players, right? When you are trying your very best and it is not working, and it feels like no matter what you do, it's just not fixing the problems, you can't get it over the line. Like Dig have had some good moments and have had these kind of like bright spots, and you could see, I think, especially when Dark first came in, you're like, oh, like maybe they really are moving in the right direction. They can start getting some series wins. But it is obviously pretty devastating, and for players that are on a team like this, all right, they have one more series and then your year is over. You're not going to playoffs. You're locked out. And the harsh reality is for pros and esports, there are 40 spots in the LCS right now, right? And that is for all the players in the region plus imports as well. So the reality is there's going to be probably a lot of players, or at least a couple players, that you expect not to be there for Dig next year. So it's really, really tough when you are like playing for your job, and this is like what they care about. So it makes sense that it is like so hard emotionally too.
Yeah, it's always definitely the hardest job and the hardest story for the players that are on the losing teams. Because you have to improve, plus you have to try and keep a good mentality with all these losses piling up, plus you have to help out, make sure your teammates as well are doing the same thing, and so it feels like you're doing multiple jobs of trying to improve at the game, but also trying to improve the atmosphere and keep everybody optimistic and keep everybody's drive up. And then for another layer to be added on to that, I did feel pretty bad for Dignitas with the double pauses.
Yeah.
With the investigation into the lock trying to E inside the Jarvan Cataclysm.
Yeah.
Which some other people have done too, with like replicating a Jarvan Cataclysm with it being filled with lots of champions, and then it does weird things with it bouncing back, and if there's no space for you to get into there, which like, oh man, that it really does feel.
It looked
like,
really bugged to me.
Yeah, it really does feel like, oh, it should be able to work this way. And, you know, maybe I can get my lock reset and all this lock damage is going to be able to win a team fight and then give you that hope. And then like, okay, so that one doesn't work out. Like, you know, that's the way that it works. It does bounce you out of a Cataclysm that is, you know, full of people. And then the second one with the Victor stuff and all of the cooldowns on your laser and that stuff going through. And then having to sit in both of those and then also, you know, all this stuff not going your way has got to just be extremely taxing. You know, you're already trying to like keep up the energy and trying to keep improving every week and keep up the drive and the hope. And whew, man, it does feel you can feel that weight.
Yeah, and I remember, you know, casting this series, like I think it was the second day one was the Victor one, right? And it's like, especially when you have long pauses and you lost game one, I feel like it's a totally different circumstance than if you won, right? To me, like when I was a pro and even just playing solo queue, playing whatever, when you have a bad game, a frustrating game, the only thing I want to do is get back in game.
Go next. Yeah.
Just go next as fast as possible. Get me out of this, remove it from my brain, like Men in Black, get me to the next game. And then the next game starts and it's immediately bugged, which is going to be really frustrating. And then it can't get fixed, and you like restart your restart client doesn't work, restart the PC doesn't work, Chrono Break doesn't fix the problem. Now you have to remake the whole game, and Victor is disabled, and it's like, wow, that's frustrating. And I remember during the pause, them showing, you know, player cams, right? They're going back and forth, and it's like the FlyQuest side, they're all laughing and smiling and whatever, and then it's like you go to the Dignitas side, and it's like, oh fuck, like. They all look like they're at a funeral. Like the vibes are horrendous, and understandably so, right? Because it's like they know this is super important for them to have any chance of making playoffs, and you just lost, and then there's all these things. It just feels like it's piling on, right? I always feel like player cams are so telling, though, like with how things are going with the team. Like, yeah.
I mean, you pretty much nailed it. It's super rough being in those long pauses and stuff. It's hard to stay focused for one, and then also, like you said, it's just when things are going bad, you're just going to be thinking about that the whole time and ruminating on it. I think that it's somewhat of an opportunity for if someone's like, you know, really mentally strong or whatnot. I think the best players will be able to use that time to refocus and snap out of it, but a lot easier said than done.
Or you have someone like on C9, I feel like you guys were always really good at like someone making a joke or like, you know, like making each other laugh or something. Like, I don't know. It just felt like you guys always had good vibes. And like having someone who can be the funny person in some of those moments, I feel like is actually really important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, having good vibes is, I value super highly. That's why I think one of the things that made me really appreciate Team Liquid this year, and obviously they didn't play this weekend, but I felt like when they started doing the like sound bites from the game, Jan was always like, he was saying some funny shit, even in really bad situations. And to me,
respect.
I'm like, damn, he's got some good vibes. I didn't know that about him.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. All I'm saying is they're doing really well, and I think it's related.
It is actually really cool. I love that we got to hear from Morgan and Quid. You know, we had them on the analyst desk, not obviously this last weekend when they weren't playing, but the previous one. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there had been this conversation going around, oh, Team Liquid, they got so much better when they went to MSI. Maybe it was because they went back to Korea and all the Koreans felt more comfortable. And then Quid and Morgan are like, I'm pretty sure Jan changed the most when we went to Korea. You know, the not Korean, the American is the guy who's, you know, completely changed the most, and the vibes changed the most. And his play improving so much post MSI, and a significant boon to TL and the change for TL. So yeah, you know, some of those changes really can have long lasting effects.
Yep. So DSG also eliminated you know, from playoff contention, but they did at least get a win over Dig, and they've actually beat Dig in all three splits now. So they like you know,
solid 7th place locked in.
They're locked in 7th place though. It's a strong 7th.
Nobody's calling them last place
because they beat them every time. But yeah, no, I mean, at least for DSG, you know, you get a series win, and I feel like DSG is going to have a really good chance in the promo tournament. Personally, I think that they have strong enough individual players that I don't think they have too much to be worried about. Of course, you never know performance on the day and stuff, but I feel like they are looking strong enough in my mind to be able to defend their spot and keep the guest slot, which is obviously the biggest thing. And I mean, for DSG to be outperforming Dig, I do think, like, as much as we're joking about it, it is still pretty impressive, because I do think DSG has by far the hardest job to actually get players signed to their team, because from everything I've heard, it's like, you know, even if another team is offering minimum, pretty much every player would rather go to another team that is guaranteed to be in the LCS next year, right? Because you could sign with DSG and then immediately lose in promo, and then you just basically don't have a job, right? So I think it is a lot harder. It's a part of the reason that they lost a lot of their players to Sentinels and stuff as well. So I do think DSG has a difficult job with that. So I think there's, you know, obviously it's not where they would want to be, but they got to win.
Did either of you see on Twitter, if you can remind me if it was either Sajed or Surdy tweeted out, "If nobody got me, I know Dig got me." Still right, because they were still able to get get their wins on it.
There you go. See, vibes diff.
Yeah,
True. Yeah, I mean, staying positive when you're losing all the time is actually really hard.
Yeah,
I do like that, at least in the Dig win for Disguised, that it seems like they're sort of leaning more into their, like, try to play through top side, play through Surdy, get him on a carry. Playing stuff like Shen support, enabling picks, TF, putting...
They played really well that game, that global game.
Yeah. They're putting such out on, like, mages and Jhin, stuff that is kind of hard to punish in lane and will just be useful, like has good utility. Obviously, it didn't work against Sentinels later on, but I feel like it's still playing to their strengths, even if they're not that strong. It's still... I mean, it's the best they can...
I'm playing to my strengths. I can curl a 10-pounder with my right arm, a 5-pounder.
Hey, they're not that strong, but they are doing their best with what they got, and I respect that.
It's all relative, you know. You got to play to your strength, even if your strength is not...
One of the little pink dumbbells, you know, that's playing to my strength.
Gotta start somewhere.
Because you don't want to see your weakness, buddy.
Exactly.
That's
That's
your strength.
That's my strength.
Don't want to know what the weakness
We're going to play to that.
Yeah. But that's why I started kind of laughing, because it was really... They obviously tried to do that versus Sentinels also. They picked the Olaf and they slammed the Olaf blind. And then it was really funny because we had seen Impact on the other side practicing Kled in the beginning of the day. And all the pro players that were on Analyst desk were like, whoa, we can't show that. They're going to know. Impact is practicing the Kled counter pick or whatever. And then he got to use it in the second game. Was really funny. And then he actually Giga bopped him and killed him with it too. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden, this strategy that you're talking about, playing to your strength of the, you know, top lane carry, and you have like a support Shen for him, you know, and you have jungle.
Strength just isn't that strong.
Jungle can go up there.
Can't win them all. Can't win them all.
If the strength Olaf dies like level 1, I'm pretty sure was the first one where Impact like zoned him off the the entire way, or level 2. Impact was level 2 at least.
You know, I might have a good jump shot. That could be my strength, but if I'm playing against Steph Curry, his jump shot's probably going to be a little bit better.
But you know,
my strength isn't that strong. You know,
just because it doesn't work every time doesn't mean you want to completely abandon ship, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, that's actually a really good point, because it is, I think, kind of natural and tempting to, when something doesn't work, you say, okay, let's try something else.
Yeah.
But I think you need to have. This is where I think coaches can be really supposed to be like, hey, look, I know we played through topside and we didn't win, but if we play through
that's our best chance.
Really not going to win.
That's our best chance. Yeah.
We're really not going to win playing through topside.
I know that's the way you want to word it as the coach. You're like,
no. That's
the
why the
coach goes, listen up, guys. I know Surdy
I don't have the
that
bedside
good,
manner for it.
but our bottom.
Hey, if we played through you guys, you would have fed even harder.
You guys would have given 40 kills.
Yeah, I know Surdy died level 1, but like bot lane still would have died in champs.
We got double killed level 1.
That's crazy.
It's funny, but literally we built the stats for these DSG games showing the bot lane stats of like how crazy bot lane canyons have been, and like
playing with 30 is the way for sure.
Dude, you don't need stats. You just have to have like watch any of the games for any amount of time. They're just getting perma-gapped. It's tough.
I feel like I'm going to repeating. I'm playing on my strength, but it's just not that strong for like weeks now. That's gonna be the thing. And next time I get solo killed or whatever, it's like, why'd you pick this? I'm playing on my strengths. They're just not that strong.
They're just not that strong. Don't worry, it could have been worse. You don't want to see my weakness.
Trust me, if I was playing Fiora, you would not like what you're getting.
Just be glad I've only died 2 times so far, buddy.
That's funny as man.
Optimism.
That's that good shit right there. All right, week 6. Let's talk about it. Week 6 is coming up. We're shipping off our 4 teams to Lyon home grounds in Mexico City. Should be super, super fun. Our top 4 teams are going Shopify, TL, C9, Lyon. Inspired is back as well. So it's the return of Inspired. He was obviously on the AD this week. So we know he's here. He's with the team. He's practicing. And this is going to decide so much. You know, we touched on it. You touched on it at the top. But not only is this the battle for top 2, TL hasn't dropped a single game so far the entire split. They're the only team in all of Tier 1 that hasn't dropped a game so far. Of course, the schedule matters a lot. They haven't played that many games, right?
You're right. They're the best team in the world.
They are the best team in the world, factually. And so we're going to see if they're going to be able to hold on to that. You know, they play against both Shopify and then Lyon is obviously the big one. Everyone is looking at those as the top 2 teams. And we don't know how good Lyon is going to be, you know, since they haven't been playing with Inspired all split. But this is going to decide so much for playoffs, so much for All Pro, so much for the MVP race. It's just going to be a really, really exciting weekend.
Shopify have the opportunity to do the funniest thing because we have all been looking forward to this Lyon versus TL hype matchup all split long. But if Shopify beat TL on the first day right before that, then everyone's going to be like, what? You know what? Never mind. Just give the trophy to Lyon again.
What if C9 beat Lyon as well?
Or if both of those things
both of them lose.
Then, however, that would, our saving grace would be that then Cloud9 versus Shopify at the very end of the week.
That's the banger.
We would just play to our new strength. That would be Cloud9 versus Shopify. But yeah, we are starting out the weekend with the Shopify versus TL and the Cloud9 versus Lyon ones, which pretty much everybody going in is going to have the same predictions. Everybody's going to be favoring the Team Liquid and the Lyon side of it because they have just like dominated the league. They're clearly the 2 biggest dogs that we got. However, it's going to be interesting to see how competitive Shopify and Cloud9 can be. Both of them have really been gearing up for this. I talked to Azael on pros and asked him specifically about this matchup versus TL, and he said it just depends on how greasy my jungler is. Because Contracts is always sweating and talking about how much his hands are sweating, and is like, "Oh, I today's gonna be a bad day. You know, I can't. My hand is slipping on my mouse or whatever."
Yeah, I've noticed that the iconic one for me is the Contract's shirt touch.
He does this.
If you look at his player cams, like you'll see one of these quite often.
He does that a lot. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's hot up there.
It used to be who was it that played with the towel over?
Crumbs is the one that played with a literal towel over his mouse the whole time.
Yeah. Which that one was crazy to me. I'm like, how do you? Does your mouse never get like stuck on it or something and like screw up your?
He had a system.
Yeah.
But I do like that Azael is focusing on the jungles because Contract's playing against...
Focusing on the greasy hands.
That's a crazy line. Depends how greasy my jungler is.
All of us, everybody, even like Inspired and Masu were like, what? Like cracking, like, what did he just say? And then we, of course, getting the explanation out of him. But it is a hype matchup because Contracts has had some jungler 1v9 hard carry moments for Shopify, and Jose is a lot of people's frontrunner for MVP. I feel like this guy is for sure the best jungler in the league. And, currently I got him as MVP for the league. We'll see about the...
Obviously, Inspired hasn't played, so you're not comparing him to him.
Yeah, Inspired hasn't played games, so I just kind of kicked Inspired off my ballot because of that. You don't play, you don't get my vote. On the ballot. But yeah, we'll see how that games at the end of the year. Of course, these are always kind of the most meaningful, even though we're judging by the full splits for these awards. But the jungle matchup is super hyped because Jose is playing so well and is such a critical part for Team Liquid. And then for Shopify, Azael is also very realistic. He's like, we're not favored to win this, but if we do, we're going to be able to go about it in this way and try and attack them. So I have loved what Azael has brought to Shopify. And so it does give you that, the hope to look for the angle at least, even though everyone's going to say TL.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the jungle matchup is really, really fun, but I feel like this is going to be decided more by the bot lane than the individual jungle matchup, because I feel like TL's bot lane has been playing so well, and then the way in which they're able to slam home those advantages by playing with Jose, I just think is so insane. Like, it just feels like every single TL game, Jose is behind your tower bot lane at like 4 minutes, at 3 minutes, at 5 minutes, at 8 minutes, like whenever he's there, whenever you wouldn't want him to be. And, TL's bot lane is playing so aggressive that they're like getting these chunks on enemy bot laners, getting chunks on enemy supports, and like someone has to base. All of a sudden they take a desynced base, and then Jose's behind you and you're getting 3v1 doof, or you're losing 3 waves, or, and it's like, to me, that is the key to a lot of the TL dominance. Even if you can stop that, you still have to deal with their soul laners, which are playing ridiculously strong. I think Quid's also a great candidate for MVP. But I feel like Shopify's bot lane has got to play to a certain level for them to even stand a chance. Like, it just feels like this is the roller coaster. You got to be this tall to ride. If you can't hold up against Core and Yan, you're cooked, because I just think that they are so good at slamming those advantages home.
Yeah, and I don't think it's looking good on the forecast for sure. I think Shopify would kind of need TL to just like underestimate them, I guess, because obviously TL is going to be preparing for the match versus Lyon the next day. So there's a chance that they just sort of don't do any prep for Shopify. They just, don't give them enough respect, and Shopify just has a really good day or something. But I think if TL shows up the way they have been for the rest of the split, it might be a quick one.
Yeah. I think C9 Lyon is actually pretty interesting, though, because if Inspired had been there the whole split and, like, they were playing with him the whole time, then, like, maybe it's different. We just don't really know how much Inspired has even been playing, right? Like, he's been in Poland. He wasn't really involved in scrims at all from what I have heard. Like, he maybe chimed in on a couple things, but it's not like he was actively there every day watching all the scrims and being involved in it all. So, like, he has been pretty far removed from, like, pro play entirely, right? And the team dynamic has changed somewhat without him, because different people have been shot calling more and doing different things. I think there is a very good chance that he just slots back in and everyone listens to what Inspired says and everything just works perfectly again. But I think it's absolutely not a certainty. And I do think C9 looked pretty good against FlyQuest in their last series that they played. Obviously, they got clapped by TL, I think, to start the whole split. And then they kind of had, a shaky-ish series against DSG and Dig, where they dropped a game to both, but they had some really good games in there too. FlyQuest, was their first 2-0. And so it'll be interesting to see, like, have you improved enough now throughout the split to really challenge a Lyon? Because obviously the goals for C9 is to win a title, is to go to Worlds. And thus far, no one is kind of buying it, right? It looks like Lyon and TL are clearly the two best teams. And so this is their real chance to kind of show pre-playoffs that they actually can compete with the top two.
To me, this is the weekend that Cloud9 made all their changes for, too. And this is when it has to pay off. And I don't think it has paid off yet for them. All of this investment in 7 people. We're going to bring on 2 more people. We're going to invest all this. We're going to change everything so that we can make an international, because they really want to make an international so bad. They haven't in so long. And so it has to pay off this weekend. And Loki hit rank 1 again in North America. It took him only like a month this time. He's been grinding away. I think he posted, it was like, I forget, it was like 300 games or something like that. And Tactical has been very aggressive in lane. His laning stats are really good, ranking against the entire league. And Masu was on pros as well. He was talking about, he thought actually if you take in the overall power level of both Cloud9 AD carries, he evaluated them fairly similarly, but he said that Tactical will play winning matchups harder and like more for a lane.
Yeah.
And that has definitely been something that is apparent.
Talked about his Caitlyn and stuff too.
Yeah. I also think that Tactical's Ezreal has been crazy. He has hit an insanely high percentage of his Qs later on in the game after he has like earned a lead. He's played like, really on the edge and got a lot of damage out. So, I think that is definitely a factor. And yeah, basically I'm looking at this weekend as, all right, C9, let's see that payoff of the extra players coming in. I think I've seen any fans with any delusion of like, oh, it's still a 7-person roster. Nah, I don't think
5-person roster.
Yeah, nobody believes that. It's not even like really a question anymore. Fans aren't even like bringing it up as a possibility.
I think Vulcan even said he called it 5+2.
Yeah, so no one's even really bringing that up. Yeah. So now we need to see. All right, what's the payoff for this? This change that did happen.
Yeah,
it is. This is the roster and. This is the weekend. I think that is going to have a big effect. Of course, everybody's already in playoffs, so it's not the literal make and break. They could still not perform that great this weekend and then make the playoffs run, and nobody would care as long as you do well in playoffs and you make that 3rd spot or higher and you actually go to Worlds. That's the actual make or break. It's just, to me, I feel like against the top competition, now is like when I really want to see.
Prove to yourself that you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's like, yeah, they're in playoffs, but getting a bye matters a lot, right? That gets you very close to Worlds if you get that bye. And if they beat Lyon, then Lyon has 2 losses because they dropped the one to Sentinels their last week with Armeo, and then you beat Shopify. It's like you can get top 2, like you can have that in your control, right? Because you would have 1 less series loss than Lyon going into that final week, assuming that they win out here. So I do think it's hugely important for a C9. That will put them very, very close to that goal to going to Worlds. And I think people are going to be judging really, really heavily off this. And as much as it's like if you're doing well in scrims, people can take satisfaction from that. Beating a team on stage, I think, just means way more. And it shows players, too, that like, hey, we did it last time. We could do it this time, right? If they get 2-0 clapped by Lyon first day that Inspired is back playing with the team, then I think it's harder to like amp yourself up in playoffs and think, yeah, we could take down TL that 2-0'd us and a Lyon that 2-0'd us. It's like, I think it's harder to sometimes make yourself believe.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm curious. I'm very curious to actually see C9 because this is one of the first time in a while that we're seeing them not come in as a front runner to the end of the season because they've not looked at like their usual regular season selves. But I see that as probably a positive because it allows them to sort of focus on their problems earlier on. I think sometimes when you're winning too much, you won't notice your problems as well and maybe like start making new problems because like you can lose sight of what's actually making you win games when you're just winning no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think there's actually a good chance that they're able to sort of like correct their problems earlier on and then ramp up. So I still expect Lyon to win against them, but I could totally believe C9 winning because they have showed very good stuff in their games. It's not always really good, but I think the people could use a reminder that like obviously they are still one of the top teams and they have like beat everyone before. So yeah, it'd be cool to see them back in form.
Then the next match, first match of the day on Sunday is Lyon versus TL. This is the one that everyone has been looking forward to. Like Kobe said, all split long. I don't know where you guys are standing on this. I feel like TL is actually favored right now, even with the return of Inspired, because Inspired has not been there the whole split, and TL I just think is looking at a higher level than we've seen them all year. I feel like they are looking very, very buttoned up, and I think Lyon, to me, will probably still be my favorites going into playoffs to actually win the whole thing because they're going to have had that time. But I feel like TL is so on point right now that I just feel like they're going to be really, really hard to beat. They seem to be so of one mind, I feel like, in how they play the game, and they have such like a defined, clear way that they want to play the game. And maybe Inspired can go in and just like instantly the team is all like, back on that same page. But I feel like because I haven't seen it yet coming in, and TL is just looking so good across the board, I feel like I kind of just have to favor them.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to edge to that side because of the fact that Inspired hasn't been here. So it's just such a hard argument to overcome, especially because, even with Inspired, they had dropped games to TL in the past when TL weren't looking as good as this. So the pattern, the blueprint is definitely there for Team Liquid. And now not only is it, hey, Inspired hasn't been with the team until, I believe I talked to him, he said the Thursday of last week is when he got there. So he had before coming to do the analyst test, he had a couple days of scrims.
So it gets basically a week and a half.
And then, basically this entire week plus a couple weeks in the previous week. in order to scrim, which is, that's some solid get back with the rest of the squad and get back on the same page. But it's not just that separation on the side of line. It's also the improvement from Team Liquid that gives that feeling, I think, that a lot of people are going to have, because TL have looked so much better through their MSI growth and coming back from MSI. And so you got to believe that that's going to continue. It's like you go down the entire roster. Morgan was playing so much better it definitely was at MSI, both and after coming back to MSI. I feel like he was playing so much better. He got way better with playing with the rest of the team. Previously, his lane phase, you'd be like, oh yeah, his lane phase is real good, but he's making a lot of weird mid-game plays, and like their Baron calls are completely off, and sometimes he's completely separated from the rest of the team. But I feel like that has all been really hammered out, and they look so much more together. And then you're like going down, and like Core JJ is back in like MVP form. He's making all these crazy engages, and making still like the Core JJ plays where he will stay extra, where you expect him to go for the recall and like stay playing on tempo, but then is where you don't expect him to be. Jose, I think he's been playing great the whole time. So, and then Quid is also back in MVP form in his own words. He felt like, so like that confidence is so big. So you're going down the entire list of TL.
It's got to be our best two ADs in the league, right? Everyone agree?
Yeah,
best two mid laners in the league. Everyone agree?
Yeah.
And let's be honest, Inspire just slots back in. Best two junglers in the league, probably right. And this I think might be more of a hot take, but I think Thanatos has had a worse split. Like I don't think he's been playing bad by any means, but I feel like he's been much less lane dominant. Still good team fighting, but I feel like this is actually our best two top laners as well.
Yeah, you definitely could say that.
I think I have Vulcan in my top two supports, so I don't think I would make that argument. But I do think, like 4 out of 5 roles, I would say it's the two best performing players in their role in the league right now. And Core and Isles are still probably both in my all pro period. So it's like
top 3.
Yeah, exactly. So these are the players that are all looking the best individually. It's the teams that are clearly the strongest, and I'm super excited for it. It's going to be insane.
Yeah. I definitely agree with the opinion that I would probably bet on TL for this actual match, but for playoffs, probably still Lyon, because I don't know, it's just so hard to bet against Lyon when you look at their roster. It's like Saint, Berserker, Inspired. I feel like Berserker himself, because I know that Sven did the tier list when he was on LCS this past weekend, and Berserker's just on a tier of his own, and it's so true. The reason being is like he almost never solo loses his team the game. He doesn't randomly get caught. He doesn't randomly die in fights. He doesn't just like lack miss the danger around him, and that's really hard to do. Is AD carry? It's so easy to die. Is that role? But Berserker's just so insanely consistent. So while I do think Yon and Core are very good, I don't know. It just seems super hard to beat Berserker consistently like that.
I will say though, so far this split, Jan has never been the one losing the game. No one has been the one losing the game because they haven't lost the game. So
that's true.
I agree. Berserker is he's on the throne right now, right? Like he is the guy to beat because he is so consistent kind of like all aspects of the game. But I will say I've always felt like TL's bot lane when they are at their best, and I've heard this echoed over the years from a lot of different pro bot lanes, that they are the best in the aggressive matchups and at pushing advantages. And I think it's cool like that they have these things that they will go to. Like Core is basically like the only one that's playing Nami, right? And he would go to it in some of these enchanter matchups because he felt like it was more lane dominant. And that was able to be used in a way that was like really, really powerful because they're eking out these slight advantages in lane and using that with Jose to kind of slam it home. So I think it's going to be really, really exciting. Should be a great series here. And then, of course, C9 versus Shopify will finish off the weekend.
Which is also a super hype race because we only have 3 world spots. And so the race, Jat termed this in our meeting, but the race to world's third is pretty funny after the WoW race. Because the third spot is so heavily coveted. And pretty much all year long, or maybe not all year long, all split long. People have been looking at TL, and like 2 of the spots are taken by TL and Lyon.
Yeah.
And so Cloud9, Shopify, and Sentinels.
And FlyQuest even.
And FlyQuest.
If you still believe.
They're looking at it from a little further down, but they're still looking.
They're squinting.
Yeah. All these teams are really eyeballing that coveted 3rd spot, which is much more attainable than taking a ticket away from TL or Lyon. And so this hype matchup, after our extremely hype matchup, also has a lot of emotional stakes to it, because again, this doesn't determine the actual 3rd spot or anything. This is not Worlds qualification, but this is currently your closest competitor to that 3rd World spot.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be really, really fun. I feel like Shopify, I think, has done well, but I also feel like they have benefited from their strength of schedule pretty heavily. And so I think this is going to be a tough weekend for them. This is where you really do kind of get to see, like, okay, well, how good are you really, right? Because they're playing 2 of our kind of predicted top 3 teams right now. And so it's going to be interesting. I mean, I am definitely favoring C9 still, but I think that they have the opportunity to kind of play upset, and if they have a big weekend here, they could put themselves in the running right at the top. I mean, they're 3-1 going into this weekend. You could be sitting at 5-1 and pretty much a lock for top 2 if you can actually take out both these teams. I think they are unlikely to do that, but it is cool to see them there and have a team that is like literally all our top 4 records are all there, all competing. Yeah, it should be sweet.
I mean, if Cloud9 do it and like they beat Lyon and and beat Shopify and come out of this like glowing, everybody I feel like is going to get back in the Cloud9 corner. People already really want to are really enjoying tactical, especially as far as the changes, and it could be there. They could make the big swing in momentum.
And I mean, for the Shopify side, it's like you were talking about this before, but Zinni had his best series by far. He's coming off his best series
since he's even come to America.
Yep, since he's been in LCS. So doesn't mean that it's all going to be like that from now till forever. But he had a great Silas game. He had a really good series, and it wasn't just Galio, Anivia, Annie, which is kind of like what we've seen every single time. And it's especially, if you want to be competitive in playoffs, you're going to have to show us more. I know sitting with the pros on the AD on Sunday or whatever, they're kind of like joking about some teams and like how repetitive their drafts were and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, we'll see how that goes in playoffs and whatnot, So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if teams are mixing things up or trying things at all, or if, to Meteos' point, they're just like, no, we can't do it. It's got to be just win now mode only, and have to try to deal with those issues in playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Shopify's certainly punching up this weekend. I think they're not exactly in the same weight bracket as the other 3 teams here, so I don't expect them to win any of their games, but they could do the funny thing like you were saying. They could just win randomly.
They're going to be playing to their strengths.
It would be hype. It would be super hype, right? Because I was kind of expecting C9 to take the 3rd spot.
Yeah.
Like TL, Lyon, C9 seem like pretty clear front runners for Worlds, but it's looking more interesting now. It seems like any of the teams in playoffs could actually make it. So,
and C9 is 8 times in a row now losing in international qualifier matches. That is an insane stat.
But what's the chance of it being 9 in a row? Like losing 9 times in a row seems so unlikely.
8, that could happen to anybody, but 9?
Just think about it.
9 times?
It would be an anomaly.
It would be. It'd be a C9 times in a row.
Oh my
They're
God.
due for a win. That's how gambling works.
See my Worlds ticket go away 9 times.
Yeah. The memes are going to be hidden if it's C9 times in a row. All right. Well, that is going to wrap it up for us here on The Dive, driven by Kia. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you don't miss an episode of Dive. Also, leave a comment. Let us know who you think is going to be winning the matches at the LCS home grounds. Is Lyon just going to be right back on top with Inspired? We want to know what you think, so leave us that comment. And LCS is going to return this Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific as Shopify Rebellion takes on Team Liquid Alienware in Mexico City, Lyon home grounds. We'll see you there.
Always remember, play to your strength, even if it's not that strong.